Let's do it.
And we are live.
You alien master, pay for my ride.
Craig, I said, and we are live.
This is CrackBerry 10th year anniversary podcast, episode 3 for Sunday, March the 12th, 2017.
That audio did not come in clean for me at all, so I think, James, you read it, and then just in case we have to use a different audio, we will do that. And we are
Definitely
live.
This is the CrackBerry 10th anniversary podcast, episode 3 for Sunday, March the 12th, 2017.
Hey,
how's everyone doing today?
Hey, everybody. James doesn't know how a CrackBerry podcast starts. Oh my God, have you never listened to one before? But that's okay. This is our 3rd episode in our 10th anniversary series. And boy, oh boy, is it ever fun to be out of retirement and fully back into the BlackBerry swing of things once again. And I think we actually have a really fun show today because we have a lot to talk about. Coming up in this episode, we have the official unveiling of the BlackBerry KEYone, not the Mercury, the KEYone at Mobile World Congress. We're going to talk a little bit about my first impressions with the phone because I've been using it for about 2 weeks now. So I'm going to save this to the later part of the show just so everybody has to listen to the whole thing. Yes, that's the kind of guy I am. I like to tease apparently and torture a lot or something like that. We're going to dive into the CrackBerry Meetup experience. You know, since our last podcast, we have had no less than 3 CrackBerry Meetups, an epic one in Barcelona, one in Toronto that was very impromptu, that was just a huge hit, and one in the CrackBerry's hometown of Winnipeg just on Friday night, which was a lot of fun with a wicked turnout of hardcore BlackBerry users. We're going to talk about, you know, the other BlackBerry that was just announced, the Aurora, which I kind of know nothing about, so I'm going to leave it to James and Blaze to talk about that, and Craig. And you know, we even have like a new BlackBerry app to talk about, the privacy shade for Android, which, you know, I kind of get the feeling when we watch the next James Bond movie, if they ever make one, that some villain is definitely going to use that app within the context of the movie at some point. It's going to be some evil message sent and read through there. But first, before we get to this, let me introduce our panel for today. So obviously everybody knows Chris. Blaze, how are you doing? Editor-in-chief at CrackBerry.com.
I'm good.
Excellent. We've got the original CrackBerry podcast co-host and with the booming voice of the CrackBerry podcast, who's having some difficulty, I think, today for some reason with Google Hangouts, or Google Hangouts is having difficulty with them. I blame Google whenever things go wrong with Hangouts because I think that's always the case. Craig Johnston.
Hey, everybody.
I just heard error, so we were going to. You may need to just use sign language for this episode. Thumbs up and thumbs down. And I think most importantly for today's panel, we have the newest member of the CrackBerry staff. I think his first day is next Friday, actually. So we have him working before he's getting paid for the gig. James Nieves, how are you?
It's fantastic. Really doing awesome today so far. Great to be with all you guys to talk some BlackBerry this week. So super excited for this.
Yeah, and I think before we get, I'm going to let you start off the news of the week. But you know, it was really hard to twist your arm to join the team. Like I mean, if it was like rubber, like if it was a rubber arm, and I went like, "Hey James, you want to come for CrackBerry? You want to?" And he's like, quits his job before he's off the phone. So, pretty awesome. Yeah. And I mean, you know, James, you've been around the world of BlackBerry for a few years now with BerryFlow. So, you know, a lot of podcast listeners, I think, for the CrackBerry podcast, when we went into hiatus, you and Blaze really picked up the reins there, doing a great service to the BlackBerry fan base worldwide. And now that CrackBerry is kicking full speed ahead again, it's awesome to have you on the team. So really looking forward to it. And what I love that, you know, James's first day will be next Friday. Which is going to be the day of our Miami CrackBerry Meetup, so which is St. Patrick's Day, which is also, I think, Ultra Music Festival in Miami. Yeah. So you're going to have basically the best first day on a job ever.
Ever, right? No, the timing's been perfect throughout all that, you know?
Okay, so do you want to, I think you should give yourself like a 2-minute intro, and then like let's start at the back, and maybe you and Blaze and Craig can take us through BlackBerry Aurora?
Yeah, I mean, it's been a really interesting experience. Like I think back to Barcelona and the meetup that we had, and building out that article that I did about, the entire event was just so fun to do, kind of looking back at everything. I remember very distinctly, like we're in the hotel lobby. We just got off this super long flight, and Kevin, you come in and you're about to go work out, and that was just awesome, right? Getting your morning started on the right foot, and we're all like jet lagged, and you're like the exact opposite. You're full of energy, ready to go for the day. And Blaze, I think you flew in like a little bit later in the day, but we just went up for breakfast and had a really nice time meeting with everyone who was coming in for the meetup. We kind of came in that first wave over to Barcelona. Just a really nice meetup and experience. The hotel and everything was awesome.
Cool. Yeah, no, that's fun. I want to talk a lot more about the meetups later and the whole experience. But before we get there, I want to talk quick through, let's go through this like Aurora device, because I know nothing about it and I want to learn from you guys.
Well, basically you had the BlackBerry Aurora, which is set, well, I think it actually is released at this point. They did the announcement on March 9th for the device, but there was plenty of lead up to it. There was plenty of leaks and details and information that came out ahead of time for the Aurora. One of the biggest things is that this is specifically a device built for and built in Indonesia. That was actually one of the highlights of the announcement for the device itself, was the fact that it was built and made in Indonesia. It's basically a mid-range device. I think it's running the Snapdragon 425 processor. It interestingly has 4 gigabytes of RAM and I believe a 12 megapixel camera on the back and a 3 megapixel on the front. Overall, it looks like a pretty good device for what it is. I mean, I think it works out when you do the cash equivalency on it, the currency exchange. Basically, it works out to like $262 US, which, from my impression, is basically good for the market that they're trying to reach, right? So that's interesting, and of course, it comes from a different organization, BlackBerry. I can't even say the actual name of it.
Meraputi?
Yeah, Meraputi.
Yeah, BB Meraputi, which I've been practicing and still butcher it constantly.
Yeah. So overall, I mean, we've seen the few videos come up that I don't think were intentionally supposed to be released, but overall, it looks like an interesting device for the market. And
yeah, it's funny, the video link you sent me of like the product overview or something, it came from like, I think, one of the agency marketing guys' portfolios. Links, right? It's kind of funny.
It was like something that like, hey, this is the work that I've done and I'm showing it now, even before the device got actually announced. So.
Yeah, we've seen that happen over the years. I can't remember which device, but I'm like, oh, we've totally had this happen where it was like the hired freelancer who's working on creative updated his portfolio before anything ever got unveiled.
I know what that was. That was the BlackBerry Q10. It ended up in a video.
Was it the Q10? Yeah.
And it didn't have any of the finer details in it. You could just basically see the basic concept of it.
Right. And there was one that was like a marketing plan or something. It was like how they were positioning it. It was like, I don't think it was even meant for public consumption ever, but it was there it was in the portfolio.
Yeah. Overall, I mean, it's an interesting device. I really do hope that it sells well, especially for the intended market. I mean, one of the things is that there's it has the BlackBerry logo. A lot of people are really fascinated with the fact that it has the BlackBerry logo, where the KEYone doesn't have the BlackBerry logo on it on the front. So you can't really define that it's.
But that's funny, because when you look at this device, right? You just know it's a BlackBerry. Like you don't need to even stick that on the back. Totally. It's like BlackBerry. When you have a touchscreen slab, you kind of need the branding to get it across. So
yeah, true.
I don't know if it would be something to get fascinated about, but it's definitely logical that they slam the logo on.
Totally.
There.
What did you think of it, James? I mean,
yeah, it kind of reminds me of like a Z30 almost.
Yeah.
Paired with something like a D-Tech 50, in terms of the feel. This is the first device that's actually like available for purchase that's running Nougat from BlackBerry as well, which I found really, really interesting. As well, they showed on the Aurora a little bit of a camera application and aperture priority in this kind of long video. And it was cool to see that, because that's software that we haven't seen on the pre-production KEYone as of yet. So whether that's going to come in the subsequent Nougat update and the final release of the device is interesting. And that leads right into that.
This is where the whole like BlackBerry licensee thing gets really interesting, right? Because, at least from my understanding, it's like, well, BlackBerry is still doing the software, or at least most of the software prior to the licensee partners getting it. But I'm sure they all have their own engineering teams who work on optimization like crazy. So then it's going to be interesting to see if between, BlackBerry Mobile and BB Mariputa, damn it, I don't think I got it right, Mariputi, and the other partner out of India, if everything's going to be like one for one the same, or if you're going to start to see like slight variations as we go, which is almost what I expect more to happen, because I don't think it's as easy as, slam BlackBerry apps onto it and ship a phone. Like there's still a lot of, I think, engineering from each of the hardware manufacturers that's going to happen as these phones hit the market.
No, that'd make a lot of sense. It's interesting, I think, with like the KEYone coming to a head, that we're seeing like new apps come along to kind of support the launch of the device. That's something we haven't really seen from BlackBerry in a while. With Prib, obviously, it was the introduction of an entire ecosystem of Android apps, but subsequent devices, we really haven't quite seen that. So like the BlackBerry Notable, and what we're going to be talking about in a minute, this Privacy Shade app, all are really cool things to help bolster the launch of these devices coming out. So the timing, again, is really, really good for BlackBerry right now.
Now, one thing I didn't watch on the, like coming out of Mobile World Congress, and we'll talk more about the KEYone later, press coverage was insane around the globe. And obviously BlackBerry Mobile is kind of the main global, or, not even kind of, they are the main global BlackBerry hardware partner. Did you see a lot of pickup with the Aurora, or was it kind of more muted? Because it seemed more muted to me, but I'll be honest, I wasn't like staring around the internet and TV watching every mention of it.
Well, I wouldn't say that it was necessarily more muted. I would say that there was like less interest in it to a certain extent from basically certain outlets. Like, you're not going to see a wide spanning,
right,
conversation about the device, because of the fact that it's a mid-range device. It's built for Indonesia. It's kind of like basically, okay, here's a device, here's what they put out, here are the specs, and it's only available in Indonesia. But like, there was no follow-up reasoning as to why this device exists or anything like that. The interesting thing that I did notice, though, is that there was a significant amount of difference between, like, on socials, like within certain circles, I guess you could say, is that there was definitely a lot of concentration coming out of Indonesia that actually had high interest in it. Like, even on Instagram and stuff like that, and just basically Twitter, like there was people that were sharing, portions of the launch and stuff like that. The launch itself was really
good.
Interesting.
It was very much like a consumer launch, right? They had a lot of whiz bang pop behind it, and we'll talk about the MWC press event after and how those probably varied, but
they totally rocked out in Indonesia on that launch.
The thing I did see was John Chen's very presidential address video on CrackBerry. I read that post. Not sure how I feel about it, to be honest. I was like, something, I don't know. Maybe just let the partners do their thing, but it was kind of interesting to see that. And they didn't do that for the KEYone launch. I didn't see a YouTube video, so maybe it was like an afterthought. After that launch, they're like, "What can I do differently this time?" And now he did it for that one. But it was kind of interesting.
That was part of the conversation when the video got posted as well. It's like, where was John during the KEYone introduction? It's like,
that's. I don't know. It's obviously there's going to be a slightly like awkward phase as the spotlight goes from BlackBerry onto now the licensing partners who are actually launching the phones, because that's kind of what the average consumer clearly cares about. I thought it's pretty interesting to see. John Chen did that interview on was it CBS morning show?
Yeah, CBS this morning,
and it just made me. It was good. He didn't say anything wrong or anything, but it just made me chuckle when it's like, what's BlackBerry up to? It's like, well, we're all about security and endpoints and IoT. And it's like, tell us more about the keyboard on this new phone, John.
It's
all
all,
about, endpoints and security, and it's like,
yeah.
so what am I going to buy? It's got Android now. It means I got apps. It's like,
It was like he almost resigned to like, oh my God, why are you talking to me about this? Here, just look at it and
no, but I mean, it's clearly that's the only interest on a show like that is about a brand new phone. It's about nothing else.
Yeah,
so.
exactly.
Kind of interesting and kind of,
I'm hoping the messaging changes there, and he can kind of just be a little champion for them as much as possible.
Yeah, that's kind of what he has to do, right? I mean, he needs to, like, I don't know. Obviously, it's like, I don't know if there's a lot of precedent to look for in terms of how this is done, especially with multiple partners producing hardware globally. But, it's kind of like, look, you signed the licensing agreement. You've got the partners launching these products. Let them do their thing. You do your thing. And there's something kind of like, it's kind of weird to tune into still, but I'm sure that'll get figured out soon.
Yeah, that'll work itself out. I mean, we're still in the first phases of all of this at this point with the transition to the licensed partners. So I'm pretty sure there's just a little bit of a phase there where everybody's like, we kind of don't know how to deal with it at this point. We're working through it.
We're working. We got to get the phones in people's hands. That's what I want to see, right?
Yeah,
that's always when the fun starts anyways. Okay, Craig, you're back. Let's test your audio and see if it's working. And if it is, let's talk about the Privacy Shade app, because I'm curious to hear, given your enterprise experience, if this is going to be a hit among the people.
I'm not really sure if it would. I've seen it. I've seen the video of it in action. It's an interesting idea. Some people take the polarized screens of laptops as well. You probably see people like that at the edge. So it's an interesting idea. Sure, I haven't seen it in person. If it really is,
now, Craig, for Blaze and James, are you hearing Craig's audio, or is it way horrible?
It's pretty sketchy. It sounds pretty robotic to me.
Okay, yeah, Craig. I don't know what's going on. Can you guys see my demo now of the privacy app in motion?
Yeah,
that looks pretty sweet.
It's pretty crazy, right? But so it's an interesting app. I'm curious to see. I saw on Twitter, some of the Android Central folks were being like, "This is insane," and I was busy when the news dropped, and then when I read it later on, I was like, oh, I installed it immediately, and I'm like, okay, it's interesting. I've never been one to use the privacy shades, but I could see if you're like sitting on, you're sitting on the train or metro or whatever with people like constantly around you, and there's things that you need to look at that are truly, truly confidential.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to say that it's like a useless app or anything like that, because it's not. Yeah, it does serve a purpose. It's just a very niche app, and it's one of those things. There are a lot of people out there who do use the privacy shades. There are a lot of people, who do have private things to look at, and it's definitely something that I like to see BlackBerry doing, because they didn't have to go ahead and put out an app.
It's like now they're leaning into it. It's like, we are a security company. We do apps and software. Now here's a product we brainstormed. Possibly out while drinking one night. I don't know. But I'm like, hey.
I mean, when you really do think about it, it fits directly in line with their security stance. So
totally,
why not put it out there, right?
So I did read in the comments some people talking about that they're going to use it with, this is perfect for watching my adult video entertainment on my phone. And then I was just thinking, I haven't tried it yet. I probably will at some point, because I'm just curious. But I'm like, it's just going to be like a game now to drag around like the little circle or shade and try to keep it on the. No, I'm counting this. My dad and my father-in-law watched this show, so that was a horrible thing. That's going to come back to haunt me.
I'd like to see them add in some features where I can like preset the shade to open when I launch like specific applications, instead of kind of having to manually turn it on and off, where it kind of knows my habits and behaviors when using it. But it's definitely in the vein of what BlackBerry does relative to the software and this whole security focus. So I think it's a solid addition to the Hub Plus suite, which, I don't know, for $12 a year, you want to get as much value as possible. So it makes sense to kind of lump this in there and continue to build out that focus.
Totally makes sense. No, totally makes sense. I think that's a good point too. Like, activating it is the one, it suggests I guess it automatically goes into your notifications drawer, pull down at the top of the Android menu. And personally, I hate when things live in there. That's like my least favorite thing. I know that's always what drove me nuts if I put BBM on any other Android phone, and then you had that permanent connection thing that would always show up. It would make me not want to use BBM because it was constantly there.
Yeah, the persistent notification.
Yeah, so I'm not a fan of those. I mean, they did suggest you could set your convenience key to launch it, like on the KEYone, but I would rather launch maybe the hub or the camera app with it. So I think you're right, though. If it was more like app specific, or possibly, I guess a keyboard shortcut could turn it on too.
Yeah, that would be something really nice on the KEYone.
Yeah, so there's options. I'll have to play with it more and see how it goes. Craig, should we try you one more time? I'm curious to hear your thoughts still, but without robot-y, glitchy noises. And he dropped off. And on that note, let's talk. What should we talk about next? Should we just jump back almost 3 weeks to Barcelona, or 2 weeks, 3 weeks?
Yeah, might as well. And then basically we can go from Barcelona to, we can do a world tour. Barcelona to Toronto to Winnipeg.
And where are we going next? I like that. So, you know, if you read the site religiously, you've probably heard most of the things we're going to talk about, but it's always nice for the, I guess, to hear it in audio. Barcelona was quite the experience. And obviously it was Mobile World Congress. That was the, you know, for the weeks leading up to it in February, that was the main event we were all waiting for, which is the official, you know, unveiling of what was the BlackBerry Mercury, and it got unveiled as the BlackBerry KEYone. I had the pleasure of being part of the press event, launch event craziness, which, you know, I could get into a little bit of detail on. What was also fun, obviously, is we had a crazy BlackBerry fan meetup. So James, you spoke a little bit about that already. And we you know, with the support of BlackBerry Mobile, we brought 10 hardcore BlackBerry fans out of the CrackBerry community. We literally surprised them with a trip, you know, flight and hotel all covered and that kind of thing, to Barcelona to attend. And everybody had like VIP passes into the press event, which was a super nice detail, I thought, from the BlackBerry Mobile
Kind
folks.
of made me feel less. I was like, I'm only media. I'm not VIP.
I didn't realize that. So you had the media pass, and what did you have, James? Were you media or were you VIP?
Yeah, we were media. We got to sit like 4 seats back, so VIP was in the very, very front. So we were a little bit further back, but it wasn't.
That's
yeah,
amazing.
it was a nice setup for sure.
I did not even realize that. That is the way to do it. Completely. So when it came to, you know, my little timeline of events there, so what night was the press event? It was Saturday night or Friday night? I can't remember now. It was Saturday.
Yeah, I can't even remember.
So I got to Barcelona, I want to say, well, I got there a little earlier in the week, and I had some work, you know, just work stuff before I moved into kind of, you know, launch event mode. I actually got my phone on Friday. So I picked up a KEYone on Friday afternoon, from where they were, like, BlackBerry Mobile was doing press briefings. So, you know, for example, like, you know, when the event was over and embargoes went live on sites like Android Central and Mr. Mobile's video and all that, you know, those guys were getting their demos, you know, during Friday and working at sort of BlackBerry Mobile's separate event space. So I eventually made my way down there on Friday, and that's when I actually learned the name of the phone, which I liked. You know, it was interesting. I was like, KEYone makes sense. You know, one, it's got like it has buttons on it, it has keys, and it is the first of this sort of new era of BlackBerry device. So I was like, makes a lot of sense. Obviously, there's no other you know, phone named that, or it's like I've never heard the word before, so it's truly a unique word, right? A unique word mark. So completely something that BlackBerry owns, and I like the tie in with keys. You know, it's like you never leave home without your keys. I also like the DJ Khaled sort of, you know, tie in with major KEYone alerts, which I have totally used and will probably overuse over the next, you know, 9 months. But I like the name. Mercury was obviously one of maybe the best code names we've had in forevers. So I don't think, you know, that could have been a good device name if that actually launched with it. But I think the thing you got to always keep in mind with any naming stuff is all the trademark things you need to sort out in advance of launching any kind of product, right? So, you know, it's easy to say like, they should have called it this, they should have called it that, they should have kept the name. But unless you actually go through that legal vetting process, it's really hard to actually land on things. I mean, I know this from just our Mobile Nation's perspective when we launch new brands and products, and it's always like, this is a brilliant branding idea, but then it turns into not a good idea just because you can't actually execute it. But that's when I found out the name. And going into Saturday morning, I had to arrive at the venue super early in the day. Not super early, but like I think by 9 or 10 o'clock we were there. And the stage was still kind of final details. Everything's getting assembled, chairs are getting laid out, and I had my part of the script all basically memorized going into it. And I received the script in advance, but it's different, right? It's not a podcast, and it's not my show, and it's funny, like having a script to stick to is a little bit in an event where really you can't make mistakes. Different than on a CrackBerry podcast where I can, screw up a million times and swear and curse. And if I make mistakes, I just yell at myself. There's nobody else I'm letting down. So, when it came to the evening, it was definitely more of a, presenter Kevin, host than a, hey, what's up, everybody? It's Kevin. Thanks for coming out. Blah, 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 off the cuff. And you know what the real challenge was for me? That I was like, look, and the thing that's interesting is when there's teleprompters there, and it's a very, it's a very planned, coordinated event, and you have to kind of stick to the schedule, because even on the PowerPoints, there's things like videos playing and loops that are all tied to how long certain things take. So it was one of those things where I'm like, get it done, don't make mistakes. That was simply the first thing. It was exciting. I was definitely excited, not nervous. I was definitely excited for it. And it was okay. If we did it again, I would definitely, prepare a little differently and do things a little differently. But I think the biggest thing for everybody to understand is, that was like a press event. And when it comes to Mobile World Congress, the whole point of a show like MWC is you're getting the world's press at that event. There's, the only customers in that event were the BlackBerry VIPs or the CrackBerry VIPs that we brought. And, BlackBerry Mobile was never going to live stream that event, right? There was lots of cameras there, and some other people like writers and stuff like that, they run snippets of the event, and you see lots of TV sound bites coming up. But it wasn't designed as a, consumer launch event. It was really, let's get the press there, tell the story, and give them the best opportunity to do their thing and spread the word like crazy. And from a press event perspective, it was probably the best feedback I think we've ever seen. And it was really funny because after, it was a highly compressed, efficient presentation. I think it was maybe, just under 30 minutes. It could have spread, we probably could have like went a little slower and stretched it to 40, but it was, get on stage, get through everything. Everybody who's in that audience cares about two things. Three things. What's the name? What's the price? And what's the global rollout? The carrier support and the dates and that kind of thing. Is it going to be far away, or is it going to be in the near future? That kind of thing.
I'd say 4 because I was definitely wondering where the food at.
Well, no, and that's just it. Right? And then for the press, as soon as the press knows that, they only care about one thing: get me a drink, get me some snacks, and get me my hands-on demos so I can get out of here and get to work. Right. So really, that event was positioned as business in the front, party in the back. And as soon as it was over, all 400 plus people went around the back. There was lots of demo booths set up. The music's going, the booze is going, and BlackBerry took it to the next level. BlackBerry Mobile took it to the next level, even having lighted white boxes set up so people could get really good photos and videos if they wanted, instead of what you always see is like just these blurry sort of photos, because everybody has like the blue, purple mood lighting and all those types of events because they're happening at the evening. So it worked really, really well for that. And so from a press event perspective, perfect. On CrackBerry, that was the only place where I think I saw any like negative comments from some of the members where they're like, well, they should have done this and this and this and done it huge and done this and this and this and this and this. And I'm like, there's always room to improve. Yes, this wasn't like the New York, BlackBerry 10 launch, right? Where it was like several thousand people, everything is laid out there like to a different extent, right? That's a different scale type of event that they went. But, and the biggest thing is what came out of it, right? And the coverage was freaking fantastic. And I think, that's the moment that, everybody holds their breath for, right? Because it's like, okay, the videos are going to go out, the reviews are going to go out, the coverage is going to go out. And, the way BlackBerry's been the last few years, you kind of didn't know what was going to happen, right? Is it like going to get a lot of coverage or not? Is it going to be positive or be negative? And this was, I think, probably the best coverage I've seen for a new BlackBerry phone, honestly, pre-BB10, because even BB10 launched with so many question marks because is it going to get carrier support? Is it going to get apps? Is it going to get this? And because this is running Android and Nougat, and the hardware is freaking hot when you pick it up, like not temperature, I mean, it's awesome hot. It's HAWT hot. I think also just where mobile's at. I mean, this is a device that's going to find an audience, and I think everybody is appreciating that. So, you know, event-wise, super crazy good experience. It was really fun to be actually backstage, because I think for anybody who's in the press who's been to a lot of these shows, you know, we get to show up at 30 minutes before showtime, and I've been to dozens of these types of launch events through the years, whether for BlackBerry or for other OEMs as well. And, I've never had the pleasure of kind of seeing what happens behind. And, I hear stories after the fact always, like you never see the event teams be like, that was easy. It's always like, yeah, glad that got through it. That's amazing. And that I've seen many times. So to actually see the little things that pop up during the day, there's always little things that happen, but it was a really, overall really smooth, no big issues at all. The only thing I'd apologize for is our stupid live stream had some glitches, apparently, and we did a bunch of tests during the day, no problem. And then during the live event, there was, I think like 7 or 10 minutes into it, it sounded like it paused. It recovered, I think. If you refresh the page, it was okay. And the replay was okay. And then we got a chopped down version posted right away. So, my apologies to anybody who endured that, but hopefully it wasn't too big of a pain, because, right away we had the more polished up Titan thing, and it was all good.
And just the after analysis, basically, there was a lot of people apparently that had troubles with YouTube at that specific time. It seemed like it was YouTube. It was not us. Like, that was the thing. Like, there was nothing. Like, what we set up was rock frickin' solid. So whatever happened there, I'm not quite sure what it was, but that's all right. And then the after party part, was good. Like, people, the press, most people were there for quite a while, I'd say, and then as the press went home to post their videos and stories, then the party kicked up, and it was funny. It reminded me of honestly, like more like 2008 or 2009 BlackBerry. And it was funny because this is a whole new team. Obviously, this is BlackBerry Mobile. This isn't the old BlackBerry, but the excitement and vibe from all the staff on hand, this is like fresh, brand new opportunity, and an amazing one that everybody on that team is excited for. And, I met a lot of members of the team that week, and it was exciting for me because, you actually have some ex-BlackBerry people who've moved over to, what is now BlackBerry Mobile under TCL Communication. You have some, Alcatel people from TCL Communication who've obviously been, pitching in as this new thing gets launched. You have some new brand new people coming in. And everybody, though, is just like pure excitement, enthusiasm, so excited to have an opportunity to work on this thing. And, from my perspective, it's that the phone is awesome that makes it amazing, right? Like, it makes me feel really bad for the last, we've had a lot of great BlackBerry friends over the years, people who are on the product teams, the event teams, communications teams, software, basically throughout BlackBerry. And it's kind of like, this is the phone now that pulls everything we've been wanting together. Because for me, I mean, the last 8 years, right? BlackBerry without the full app ecosystem is always compromised. No matter how great the OS is, how great the security is, it's like, you're making me need to carry 2 phones if I want to be having the best tech experience I can as a human on planet Earth. And this phone is like one-stop shop, and it's got the best of everything I've always liked about BlackBerry. Plus, I've got my ecosystem now. So I feel bad that a lot of those old teams never had the chance to like have this type of product to just fully do. But I feel incredibly excited for this new team that's building, that they're starting off in a spot like this, and
literally it felt like a time machine to like 2008, 2009 with launches like the Bolt 9000 or 9700, where those teams were just like, yes. So it was great. It was really just a once, I hope it's not a once in a lifetime experience. I hope we see many more of these things over the years to come, but it was just not something I expected would be happening in 2017.
Yeah.
And that it did. I'm like, wow, that was truly amazing.
I think in general, that excitement that is within BlackBerry Mobile and the people that are working with BlackBerry Mobile at this point is really hard to convey to others, especially like, like CrackBerry readers and stuff like that. It's really hard to say like how excited that they are to have this opportunity, because obviously not everybody was there, right? They only had 400 and some members or people that were there in attendance at the launch event, whatever. Those 400 or whatever people were there felt the excitement, they felt the enthusiasm, they caught it, right? But nobody, once you step outside of that bubble, there's nobody there to like feel the excitement. It's like you have to rely on other people's words about the excitement, and that's the hardest thing to convey. Like, they're really excited for this launch, and the people that were there were really excited for this launch, and it's like you don't understand how excited they were. This isn't the exact same scenario. Like, it's totally new, it's fresh. It's like they're in for it. They want to rock out with it. Like,
the thing that blows my mind too being is the timelines, actually, where if you think back, like, when did they announce this licensing arrangement? November, December?
Yeah, I think it was close to the end of November.
Yeah, like that's not really a long time, right? And then it's like, okay, so a month and a bit later, they're teasing it in January at CES. And I mean, I played with that phone, which was still, hand-built, hand-assembled prototype, right? Software, things were coming along, and then I'm like, holy crap, like, okay, month later and month and a half later, now you're announcing it. And the demo units that everybody was playing with in Barcelona are pretty close to final form, not quite final production, but coming off the assembly line pre-production style, as they still make the final tweaks to it. And now we're going to kill the month of March and that pretty fast, I think, and it's going to be in everybody's hands quite soon. So the pace of everything to me seems just crazy fast, given that BlackBerry Mobile is building a new team here, right? And the Nicholas Zabel at the end of his presentation, president of TCL Communication, he made that one of his final points, is like, this is a new company that we are building, a new team, and it's going to be a world-class team, and it's happening now, right? So it's one of these things where I often say this about Mobile Nations when I talk to all of the our employees and contractors within the company is, we're always building the airplane while we fly it, right? Like, it would be an easier life if we just said, okay, guys, behind the scenes, we're going to build this beautiful thing, and then it's going to be like, ta-da, all done, here you go. And in reality, that's not what happens here. And in this case, I'm like, the product is awesome, but they're literally building this team as they're launching this product. And some things, from my perspective, it's like, well, and I think a CrackBerry perspective, it's like you'll have to have some patience for. Other things will probably be like awesome immediately, and it's gonna be different. But I think what just excites me is this is we saw it with Steve Sestouli when he joined us on our first anniversary podcast. I think the respect they have for the brand and kind of the BlackBerry legacy, the energy they have going forward for what they're doing, the amount they want to listen to the fans, the people watching this podcast right now, listening to this podcast, etc. It's kind of all the pieces we've always wanted over the years, and I think we've never quite had them all at once together, between product, between energy and mentality and everything else. Now it feels like it's there. So I'm really excited. Like, put it this way: if I played with that phone and I didn't think it was good, or I wasn't excited about the team, CrackBerry Kevin very, very quickly would be back in retirement, and I'd be like, enjoy it, and I'm out of here. And for me, this is like a super easy thing to get excited about, because I like the product so much, and the fact that the team behind it seems to be just top notch and with the right attitude makes it that much easier to be excited. So
yeah, totally.
It's pretty cool. It's fun. Not what I expected 2017 to start like, but zero complaints. Having fun. I missed it, I guess, a lot.
everyone's been taking well to it. Even like you mentioned earlier, the media that has reported on it thus far with their early hands on, it's all been just genuine and also positive. And I think that's the best way to kind of bring this device to market. Yeah. Especially with the rollout, with the momentum and the buildup that they've done, kind of consistently dropping news and new information, holding on to a little bit of mystery where, it made sense, and then propelling the device forward. April is absolutely going to be exciting.
Totally. No, and I think, the nice thing with this phone, like the more I use it too, because obviously at Mobile World Congress, phones get announced, right? So, KEYone did super well, lots of good press, picked up some awards. You saw, LG do the G6 announcement. I mean, good old Nokia was back with some devices as well. The old throwback one that got like a ton of attention, but not something probably most people will legit buy and use. And then obviously we have the Samsung Galaxy S8 announcement is coming up, right? And then, later this spring or fall, I should say, you're going to have your iPhone 8 announcement. What I love about the KEYone is none of those other phones really matter, right? Like the audience this device is going for, especially initially, which to me, it starts with, BlackBerry fans past and present, and maybe some other people like who are going to try it just to see what a keyboard's like. But the starting point is BlackBerry fans past and present. And a lot of, there's the core people still on BlackBerry, but I think maybe the bigger opportunity with this phone is people who are kind of forced to leave BlackBerry, almost like, not necessarily that they wanted to, but it no longer on the ecosystem side delivered what they needed. And
there's a compromise.
There's compromise, but they want a keyboard still, or would love to try that keyboard again. So I think for this, it's more about, when it hits, it's right. And, I think the price point, again, this is one of these things where I almost chuckle. Like that's probably in the press. One of the only negative things you saw was like, oh, I wish it was $40 cheaper or $50 cheaper or whatever. And I'm honestly, those comments get me so mad. Like I understand money's money and like less is always better and you want things priced accordingly. But I'm like, one, you pick up the phone and it's a premium product, right? It doesn't feel like a cheap device, So whether you're holding, name your product, you want to pick up a Google Pixel, an iPhone 7, LG, whatever, this doesn't feel like a low end product, number one. Number two, I think they picked a pretty good compromise, like compromise in the, like a positive sense of the word here, where it's like they said, okay, we're building it for BlackBerry people, like massive battery life. Let's give it a huge battery. Let's give it a good camera, because we've never really fully had that before. The proof was closer, but still not awesome. Put in that keyboard on it and make this a tool that gets you through the day, but it's also can have fun too, right? But make the focus on that awesome communication experience first. And for those people who are buying that, like a $40, $50 price point, or it's like, oh, it's got this processor chip set, it should be a little cheaper. It's like, it doesn't matter. Like the one day in your 2 years, 3 years of owning this device, when it is 3 a.m. and you're stuck out in the middle of nowhere and you have no place to charge or wirelessly recharge or something, and you still have 40% battery life left, that $40 extra you paid, you'd be willing to pay $4,000 extra for the phone, or at least let's say double. Maybe I would pay $4,000 extra. Like value on a phone like this is not made up off of like, oh, the specs need to, like, it should be $14 cheaper, $46 cheaper. It's like that one time it comes through where you're like at the grocery store, able to type that message accurately one-handed because you like have a screaming baby here, this here, and your boss is yelling at you this, and you're like, send. No typos, it's all good. Pays for the phone, phone is paid for. Like justifying the phone off that sort of other mindset is such a, I get the tech reviewers do it because you need to kind of compare a lot of things over time, yes, but I just don't think it's actually, it's actually to the average person or the average potential customer for this phone a big thing. And I've already seen it at the meetups, which we'll talk about that we've had, right? It's like, yeah, it'd be nice if it was $50 less, but it's like, it doesn't matter, right? You could charge way more for this phone and you'd buy it. And then, I use my example of something like the Google Pixel XL. So, I'm in Canada. I bought the 32 gig version of the XL. It was $1,200 when I got it. Okay, so this is $550 US. Yeah, even with the exchange rate, it's going to be, I don't know. Like if you just do the exchange conversion, that's over $7. But it's not $1,200, right? And I'm like, and I use that XL. I'm using this. I'm like, holy shit, this is what feels like an amazing deal to me, because I pick up the Pixel XL and I'm like, it's a very smooth phone, especially like running Android, super smooth. But it is like an emotionally dead product. Like I look at it sitting there on my desk and I'm like, meh. You know, it's like never once did I pick up the phone and I'm like, oh man, this thing is like, I love this thing. It's like, yeah, it's a good phone. Nothing to it. I pick up this phone, I'm like, even my wife, she's like, you don't put it down, right? Like I'm constantly just on it, and then I'm looking at it and I'm like, it just checks all the boxes. So to me, I'm like, $550 is too expensive. I would have paid $1,200 no problem for it, because that's what I paid for that freaking XL. And this to me is like way more enjoyable and better suited to me as a product.
Yeah.
So sorry, Kevin rant or something. But
no, it's a good rant to get out, because it's absolutely true. Like,
yeah, I need to figure out a quicker way to write that up. That maybe be a good story. I mean, people will argue with it and they're entitled to, but honestly, to me, it's like the same thing. It's like the one time where your battery life is going to be massive at the end of the day. It's like pays for itself. And this is my favorite part of Barcelona. So I'm with all the Android Central guys in an apartment for the latter half of the week after the fan event was done. And literally for 5 days in a row, I was up at 8 a.m. I slept on the couch too. They had all the bedrooms. I slept on the couch. I was very nice. I'd get up at 8 a.m. and 5 days in a row, go to bed at 4 a.m. Literally, those are the days. Every time I went to bed, it was like 46% battery life, 51% battery life, 49% battery life every day. Yeah. Everybody else had charged at least 2 times. like the they're all playing the battery games, because even on big phones, like, I don't know, it's just this thing is running smooth. And I mean, I have tons of apps installed. My screen time, like I was using the phone all the time, roaming, which is notoriously usually horrible on battery life. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, poof, what's your favorite feature of the KEYone? I'll just say battery life as the starting point, and then I'll talk about other features after that. And I know like there's been some good BlackBerry 10th phones with great battery life.
Yeah,
like
the
Passport's really solid.
Mm-hmm.
But for an Android phone like this, and I mean the Priv's battery life, not hot at all, right? Like I think that's became very quickly one of the big Priv complaints is just the battery life is crap on it. So this ain't no Priv. Like this thing is tremendous battery life on built on Android.
Well, I mean, speaking of the Passport, I mean, that's exactly the situation that I would liken it to, is basically, with the Passport, you always had a big enough battery. Like you could go wake up in the morning and go to bed at night and not have to worry about the battery life. If you woke up the next morning and didn't charge it, you could get out the door and totally not have to worry about it. And to me, that was, like you said, part of what justified the cost of the Passport anyways, right? So it really comes down to way more than just, the processor specs and how much RAM it has. It comes down to the totality of it all. You got to put it all in there and put the package together. So
you have just nailed probably the single biggest topic that has come up at our various CrackBerry meetups that we've had is, obviously when we do a meetup, we're bringing together, 50, 100, over, I mean, every time. So, I think Barcelona, we had close to 50 people. Toronto, we had more like 150 people. Last meetup, we had about 70 people. And the topic comes up, right? Because and a lot of the fans that are there, it's like, and everybody's so awesome. These are just my favorite things I've done maybe in all my life are doing these CrackBerry meetups right now. Like, it's just amazing. And people whip out every phone. Like they'll have, it's like, here's 5 BlackBerry phones. I've got every BB10 device. It's like trading cards we're pulling out at these events. and it's funny because when topics come up, like, people ask like, well, how's it compared to the Priv or the D-Techs? Because, the D-Techs are new. And in this case too, like TCL built the D-Tech phones, and then they're doing the KEYone as BlackBerry Mobile now. And I'm like, look, like the KEYone is a new beast. Like even the D-Techs, to me, they're kind of like non-BlackBerries, right? Because I think when it comes to the total package, it's like, BlackBerry, found TCL. They're like, hey, what do you got that we could stick our logo on? They took those, whatever. What are the equivalent names from the Alcatel brand? Idol
4 and 4S.
Yeah. And then I think at that point, it's kind of like, oh, this, right? But the level of like, I think optimization that is going into the KEYone it's just another level of bringing the package together, right? And this is a topic, I've had with guys like Michael Fisher and that. because the chipset comes up as one of the discussion points. It's like, well, I wish they would have put the 800 Snapdragon 800 blah 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 into it and not the 625. And like Fisher's like, no, that's a great decision. He's like, he has his I think Moto G Play is maybe one of the phones that has that processor right now.
Moto Z too.
And he's like, it's amazing because, and that became his show phone because it has such amazing battery life and it still runs really fast, right? Like it's a fast running phone. Now, if you want to run VR on it or crazy 3D gaming all day, okay, maybe that's not the chipset you want. But for just everyday mobile use and then getting the most battery life, it's a great performer. And so I don't know. I think it's, the choices they've made here are very deliberate, but the way you optimize it is key. And, same thing, people ask about the RAM. It's like, well, how's it running with 3 gigs of RAM? And they should have put 4 in. And I'm like, look, the RAM is a number, but how you optimize it and complete that total package makes a big difference. And what the DTEK 60, didn't that have 4 gigs of RAM?
Yep.
Yeah. So the KEYone with 3, from my experience, is far better. Like my DTEK, Blaze knows, it for me was like a slow experience. And especially I went from the Google Pixel to the DTEK 60, and now I'm on the KEYone. And like moving from the Pixel to the DTEK was kind of painful, right? And to me, like I'd have to clear apps. I've made it almost a habit a few times a day to do it. And I mean, even on the Pixel, sometimes I'll just like clear apps because I think it's a habit I have, whether you need to or not sometimes. And going to the KEYone, I don't need to do it, right? It's much more closer to Pixel performance for me than even comparing it remotely to DTEK 60. So, okay, it has a gig less RAM, but those 3 gigs are stretching way further for my same usage than the 4 gigs did on the DTEK 60. So I think it just comes down to the amount of love being poured into the optimization to complete that total package, to your point, Chris.
Yeah.
I think the KEYone also has like newer RAM as well compared to some of the other devices. So it's just newer silicone, better optimizations, more attention to detail. That's what's going to make the device a success.
No, and like I said, I've been been super excited about it, right? So for me, it was interesting. Like I have not been a predominantly keyboard user for the last probably 4 years. Most of my time goes onto touchscreens. Every time a new BlackBerry comes out, I'll always get it, and I'll spend at least enough time on it to like get into the keyboard, use it, and then so I have in my head my ongoing list of like best keyboards of all time, which the Bold 9900 is still the best BlackBerry keyboard ever made. Everybody knows this. I'm going to look at the comments to see if anybody disagrees, but I don't think you can. and then I actually put the KEYone probably, depending on how you hold a device, because some people have a slight nuance to how they actually grip and hold a phone. It's probably, I think, maybe my second favorite keyboard now, because I think like it's very reminiscent to the Bold 9000, like looks wise and size wise, but much better execution. It has a nice click, like nice chiclet click clack to the keys. You have a good roll kind of side to side, but it's a tight enough keyboard where you're not moving your fingers too far. And I think that's the thing I'm always surprised on, because I know I've met even at the meetups recently a lot of Passport owners who just freaking love the Passport keyboard. And I get into arguments because I'm like, you're crazy. You have to move your fingers so far. And it's always been my complaint with, even back in the days when you always saw landscape keyboards on phones like the Sidekick and that, or the original Android phone, the T-Mobile G1. A landscape keyboard is horrible because you have to move your thumb so far for every letter you want to type on. It's all about having like the tightest keyboard you can have that's still big enough to be like super accurate on it, and with the buttons, big enough to strike. And I think the KEYone is really like a nice keyboard. So I mean, you guys spent time with it. What do you think of the keyboard? And oh my God, that's the G1, or what was it called? The G1 or the Daydream or both?
Wow.
Yeah, that's right. It's like they ripped off everything. Here's the trackball from a BlackBerry. We'll do a slider like that. That's nuts.
It's crazy because Motorola has a Indiegogo keyboard attachment that basically brings you that experience, but same issue, right? It's just a lot of travel for your fingers, and you get tired after a while. No, using it in Barcelona was a really nice experience because the keys felt light to touch on. I think the keyboard, the Passport keyboard, is a little bit tougher and a little bit more rigid, so you definitely feel a little bit of that fatigue after using the keyboard for a while. But I was also impressed pre-production software, and the thing did run really, really well. I'm using a Pixel right now, and I was, again, par for the course. Everything ran pretty well, notwithstanding. What are some of your things, Blaze?
I mean, for me, it was basically coming down to the keyboard and the speed of the device. Everything felt nice and fluid, even over like like Kevin was saying, the DTEC 60. Everything felt nice and fast, and specifically for the keyboard, I mean, that using the Priv, coming from the Priv and using that keyboard was kind of like being the first Android device with a keyboard. I thought that the Priv was going to be something that would be like really, really special, but no, I think the KEYone has it because it has the proper keyboard. It has the right spacing. It has the right amount of mushiness. It has the right placement of the keys and everything. The Priv was close, but it just wasn't there because it was too shallow and too, I don't know.
Funny.
It was just off.
It's funny. Like, this is what I found so crazy about the Priv too. It was like, so when the Priv came out, I got it, I was not that excited about it because when I used the keyboard, I'm like, it was too shallow, too low on the phone, did not feel like a BlackBerry to me. Like, I was like, this isn't a BlackBerry. And whatever in my head that, draws all these weird things together, I'm like, yeah, it looked like a BlackBerry. But once I picked it up and used it, I'm like, this isn't a BlackBerry. All of our guys on Android Central loved the hell out of that phone because their perspective was, we only use Android phones. And now we've got an Android phone with a keyboard. And the novelty of it, they liked, right? So they weren't judging it by like sort of this BlackBerry standard I had in my head. Yeah. And they gave it an Editor's Choice Award. They recommended it super heavily for a long time. A little bit pricey, the phone, but if you could find it on a little bit of a discount, like a pretty good no-brainer Android phone. But as a BlackBerry guy, it's like never felt like a BlackBerry to me. And even the DTECs, like I said, I'm like, yeah, they're BlackBerries-ish, but I just feel like they never got the love that you need, like that attention to detail love. And now you pick up this and you're like, yeah, it's a BlackBerry, right? And I think that's what's interesting here is like, yes, it's on Android, but this is a phone, again, I think built for BlackBerry users, past and present, keyboard people, and it runs Android versus the Priv, which was kind of more like built for Android people to get a sense of like a BlackBerry thing. I don't know if that makes sense, but I feel like it's coming at it from the opposite side. And in retrospect, I almost think it would have made sense for like a phone, the style of the KEYone to launch before the Priv did, and then for the Priv to come after as more of a novelty.
Come in the wrong order.
Kind of.
I mean, the best thing that I can say about it, and old school BlackBerry users will get this comment, is that when you hold the KEYone, you can actually get into that like BlackBerry prayer position.
Oh, so
it's just like.
So this is the part. This is what got us on the keyboard topic. So what's interesting is it took me 2 days, more like a day and a half, to get back into using the physical keyboard full out, because like I've been predominantly touchscreens for the last while. I can type fast on a touchscreen, so if people say like, well, I can type around glass, like I can type faster on glass in controlled conditions, and we'll come to that, right? But after 2 days of using it, it's like, again, time machine back to 2008 or 9, and I'm just like, and I haven't stopped since then. And it's just funny how it's not even about the typing. Like, yeah, it's a keyboard. You could type on physical buttons. You could type on glass. It's how having the physical keyboard starts to change the way you use your smartphone without realizing it. And it's just like, I'm more willing to do way more stuff on the phone subconsciously. I'm not thinking about it, just because I know the accuracy is there and the ability to get stuff done. And I think my best example was, when I originally was going to fly from Barcelona straight back home to Winnipeg. And then, a couple of things popped up, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to have some meetings in Toronto. And then I'm like, hey, I'll do the meetup while I'm there, that kind of thing. So literally I landed at the Toronto airport. I cleared customs and I left the airport. I didn't even cancel my flight because it was going to be a pain in the ass. I just didn't show up for it. I jumped in a shuttle van to head to a hotel, and I had nothing booked, right? So now I'm in the back of this bouncy shuttle van. I have my KEYone out, and I'm like, okay, I'm like, hotel, I'm like, booking.com, credit card number, not like nothing. And I'm like, oh, I need to text and email, like text message all the people I know in town and be like, hey, who wants to go for dinner? and then I have like 17 conversations going at once. I'm like literally just jumping back and forth between 17 real time, like I'm not joking, 17 real-time conversations between people. And then I'm, I had my headset on, so I'm making a couple phone calls while doing that also, or I plugged into my headphones. And the amount of stuff I got done in that car ride, in the back of a bouncy car ride, if I was on a touchscreen phone, or like even if I had my laptop out on my lap, tethered for connectivity, it would not have been as good of a time and productive a time and getting just shit done fast as compared to using the KEYone. And I'm like, and I didn't think about it. It was just like, you just got it done because you could. And I'm like, that had nothing to do with flat out typing speed. It was really about accuracy in, that uncontrolled sort of environment where I'm like, and just still able to get it done. So now I'm just back to it. It's super fun. Love it.
So we totally got off the topic of like Barcelona and the meetup and everything.
I think we got into the KEYone. I mean, let's finish. I want to talk meetups, but I think last thing I've noticed a few people saying, Kevin, where's your KEYone review? Where's your KEYone review? So I mean, look, couple things. One, the units I have right now, which I'm super lucky to have, and I'm obviously using them at these meetups we're going to talk about. They aren't final production. Plus, I'm in this kind of lucky position to have them. So I'm not going to go out and post my CrackBerry review until it's the same time as all the other press, tech media, etc. gets their review units closer to launch on that final hardware, because that's just that's not fair. I am going to do, I'm happy to talk about parts of the device. I'm going to totally shoot a couple CrackBerry Kevin videos this week. I was thinking I'll do something like top 10 features that I'm loving, and maybe something on the keyboard. I totally need to do, I'm not going to get into it right now. I totally need to do a video about that style ring. You can have one with and without. So when we go to the meetups, I'm like, this is my personal phone loaded up so I can keep track of which one is mine. And I just warn people, I'm like, don't look at the photos unless you want to see a lot of horrible, like, shirtless selfies and really, really creepy stuff. But it's funny. Anybody who wants to know like more about this stupid thing, I give them my pitch and they are sold. And it's like the most oddly practical accessory since the BlackBerry holster. But it's one of these things that changes the way you use a smartphone. And once you use it, you have a real hard time not using it, despite that it looks maybe a little bit odd. I wish, though, somebody, maybe BlackBerry, would just like build the functionality into the back one by default, so it sat flush and just kind of popped out. But I'll save it for a YouTube video, and you're going to be like, "Oh my God, that's amazing! I want it."
Yes, let's get the key 2 with that.
Yeah, exactly. Key 2. Honestly, I almost want to do the pitch now, but I'll leave it, because the thing is, if you're listening on audio, it's not going to translate well.
You're not getting the full impact.
You need to see the demo, so stay tuned, and minds will be blown. Again. Okay, meetups. So I mean, while I was in Barcelona I was obviously a little bit like preoccupied for a couple of days, especially while all our fans were in town. But I mean, James, you were there. You were very much, you may have had the media pass, but you were there like as part of the fan crew.
Definitely.
Really. I mean, let me know from your perspective. I read the article, but I want to like hear how it was from start to finish, like finding out you were going to just the way it all kind of went down as a BlackBerry fan.
Yeah, as soon as I like found out about it, I was like, "Oh crap! Like, let me get my passport together, right?" And not my keyboarded passport either, right? I had plenty of those on deck, so we took care of that, got that expedited, surprisingly efficient, and got that all set up. Michelle did an awesome job coordinating, like literally a round of applause. I was in that wave one that came through. Yeah, she did an awesome job. She basically got us all. About half of us, right? All on one plane flying over from JFK to Barcelona. That was like about a 7.5-hour flight. And across the whole way, slept. Still, the jet lag, get a little bit groggy once you get there and whatnot. But getting into the city, kind of coming from the outskirts of Barcelona and through kind of the trails and the hills. And I really wasn't expecting all of that, to be totally honest. You know, thinking Europe, I was thinking maybe a little bit flatter because we're more near the ocean. But I mean, it was just beautiful taking it all in. It's such like a refreshing landing. The temperature was like perfect coming from muggy Florida where it's super hot and oppressive. So that was really nice to kind of come down to like the 70s where it's nice and cool, you know, that humid air. And, you know, as we get further into the city, you know, we're chit-chatting, kind of getting together about what devices people are using. We've got people using all sorts of devices, iPhones, you know, Motorola's, some BlackBerry 10 devices, which were being held very close to the chest, and really just great to meet with everyone. And as we headed toward the hotel, getting out and whatnot, it was just really nice to start together, you know, as we all kind of start collecting. And the breakfast we had at the hotel was just phenomenal every morning. Blaze, you can speak on the spread too. We went back and forth many times for different dishes and whatnot. I mean, the spread was fantastic.
You know what's crazy? Because you're talking about the hotel. So I mean, I would have loved if all the, you know, everybody could stay even later in the week. Here's how stupid things get during Mobile World Congress. So, I mean, you guys all arrived on Friday, right? So you're there at the hotel Friday night, Saturday night. And then checking out on Sunday to fly home. So like a whirlwind, like literal whirlwind adventure, right? Like you spent almost as much time probably traveling as you did in the city,
if not more.
The cost of the hotel per room on the Friday, Saturday night was like maybe like 110 euros or 120 euros per night. Beautiful hotel, like just like it was like a 4-star, just renovated, you know, sort of the boutique hotel off Rue Diagonal, nice area of the city. The next day on Sunday, guess what the cost per night was? Like 800 euros. like just
the Mobile World Congress effect. Yeah.
Mobile World Congress effect. I mean, the same thing happens in Vegas during CES, but it's like, oh my God. But it was, yeah, beautiful hotel. It worked out so well. So really cool.
And the views
and then the actual
from the roof were just awesome.
And like the press event. So what blew my mind too was, you know, that venue was packed, right? It was a cool, I don't know how you describe it. It was like one of those almost like outdoor pop-up-y type of like, but pop-up but permanent type of structures.
Yeah.
But there was like a lot, that line was huge. Because I know I walked past you guys when we were walking in from our speakers green room, and I was like looking at the time and I'm like, oh my God. And then I looked at the venue and I'm like, is everybody gonna actually fit in there? But it was super packed. Vibe was good though. I think everybody who attended got a kick out of it. So.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Cool. No, it was great to see. And then, you know, from Barcelona, the meetups have continued. So when I was in Toronto, we decided to throw a kind of an impromptu meetup, which was fun. So I'm doing all the meetup planning using that meetup.com service. And, you know, I'm like, I don't know how many people will attend, maybe 15, maybe 20, that kind of thing. And then it was like 180 people RSVP'd in a day. And then I'm like, we need to find
a bigger venue.
Well, no, not even a bigger. It's more like we need to find a venue. We didn't have a venue when we said, hey, let's do a meetup. I was thinking, you know, we could meet up wherever. Because, you know, 10, 15 people, not a big deal. And then I was like, but it worked out super well. CrackBerry members actually came to the rescue. This guy in Toronto, Chris Goodwin, a huge BlackBerry fan. He has a business that was nearby. We were actually looking because he has some space we could have used, but it was booked up that night, and he put us in touch with another place, and totally, you know, took care of everything, made it easy for us, and I love it. He even printed out like a 5.5 foot or almost 6 foot tall giant KEYone, and then they had
awesome.
Yeah, he had arts and crafts day with his son, and they took the printout and they attached it to a foam core, so we had this giant structure, which was too big to travel with. So I think it's actually making its way back to, or it made its way back from Toronto to, you know, BlackBerry Mobile's, you know, team. They have a handful of people out there as they, you know, this new entity starts. So it found a good home. But now it's like, well, as we do more meetups, we need to have more props. And we had a Winnipeg meetup this Friday, and I didn't have the big prop. And I was like, well, we didn't take as many photos and things and post them to like Instagram and social, because we just didn't have as many, like the prop to stand beside. So now I'm like, damn it, we need to get it for Miami next week, and we need it for New York, and we need all the props, because it brings out all the snappy of the photos, which is fun. But just, you know, if anybody's watching or listening who attended the Toronto meetup or the Winnipeg one, you know, just or the Barcelona one, just such an awesome time. Really, really nice to get to chat with everybody. And every time it's been, you know, in Toronto, I think it was like 6 p.m. or 6:30 p.m. till 1 a.m. I didn't stop talking to people about BlackBerry. And then the same thing happened this Friday. And by the end of the night, like I have no voice left, and I am just, you know, I'm lubricating it a little bit with alcohol just to keep it going. You know, I mean, maybe lubricating it a lot with alcohol, but I'm like, it is so fun. But I'm like, holy smokes, that's just like, and if we didn't actually shut down these places, we could probably
Keep
talk
going.
till 4 a.m. Yeah, it's amazing to see the passion. And I think, you know, I think it's the most important part of what's happening right now is, you know, like it's almost like a restart, like a re-kickstart of BlackBerry. And, you know, the last few years, I mean, I feel like it's kind of been, we've all had our hearts broken by BlackBerry a lot of times. And it, you know, it depends how long you've been an owner, right? It's like, oh, is my playbook going to get BB10? No. Is my storm ever going to get updated? Well, maybe in 19 months, you know. Is you know, what are the latest things? Is my priv ever going to get nougat? You know, is BB10 going to get you know, are they going to make another BB10 phone with like the KEYone hardware? No. Like there's always a little bit of something that's happened to us, right? And it's often been you know, a little bit overpromise, underdeliver. You know, even BlackBerry 10, right? We, you know, that was the great hope, but the apps didn't come. It was late. The carrier support didn't happen, and it was like became a great OS, but you know, from a very early point on, you knew it was not going to be the, you know, here for forever because it just didn't take off with all that support.
Yeah, it wasn't going to relive the glory days of BlackBerry OS. So.
And I think now what's interesting is I meet more and more BlackBerry fans in person and I get to talk to them. It's like, you know, we kind of need to like mend our broken hearts a little bit. And I think these events and what's happening now, it's starting to do that. And I think, you know, because BlackBerry Mobile is a fresh start, we can kind of leave a lot of the baggage and brokenheartedness a little bit with BlackBerry and look forward here. And I think, and that's great, right? And I think, you know, obviously BlackBerry, depending where you are, you know, in the BlackBerry community, obviously we've never forgotten about BlackBerry, but in the larger consumer world, the brand has been a bit forgotten, even though there's been phones launching. I mean, the DTEK 60 must have been the least covered launch of any BlackBerry ever, I think.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Like, or just no launch coverage. All of a sudden, you know, it's a remembered brand, but I think all of us become, you know, if we're a BlackBerry fan, you sort of become a salesman for BlackBerry now, right? And I think what's amazing for these types of meetups, it's like, wow, you know, we have 100 people here, 70 people here, 200 people here, and everybody is super excited for the KEYone. Everybody is super excited for BlackBerry and this kind of new future. And, you know, if we all go out and spread the word to our 10, 20, 50, 200 people, like it's that bottom-up approach to building the community that you know, it makes a big difference over time. And it's funny, the other topic that's come up a lot in these meetups is how the KEYone, and I have the same feeling, reminds me of the bold 9700 launch. And it's a very similar sort of storyline where it's like before the 9700 came out, BlackBerry released a whole bunch of phones, right? And each one was like kind of good, but it always missed. It was like, oh, the bold 9000 is really good, but you know, it was the world's fastest 3G browsers that didn't work, right? It was like unusable browser still, but it was a ballin' looking phone. And then it's like the Curve came out, but it didn't have this or this. And then this came out. And then when the 9700 hit, it was like the BlackBerry that put it all together. It had crazy good battery life. Keyboard was usable. It was still solid. Like you could toss the thing. It was a durable phone. And it didn't launch to massive fan, you know, like, wow, BlackBerry Bold 9700 is here. It was kind of like they spent that budget, I think, on the original 9000 launch or something. But that was a phone that people just loved the shit out of. It found its audience, and then it grew and grew, right? And it wasn't like in month 2 or month 3 where it took off. It was like month 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, where that thing just kept growing. And even even in enterprises, right? Because they often take a little bit longer to like you know, they have to adopt the new product, test it. Like it takes a little bit more time to find that audience. It just became this phone with like a really long shelf life that people loved forever. And it was like a quintessential BlackBerry. And then now I kind of feel like with KEYone, you're sort of in the same thing where, okay, they've launched a bunch of BB10 phones, obviously. They launched a bunch of Android phones. Each phone has found like an audience of people who still mainly, like, you know, who like it, but it's never kind of gone that next level. And all of a sudden with the KEYone, it's like, okay, this is the one that's putting it all together between the apps, the battery life, the keyboard. It feels like a BlackBerry. It looks good, you know, great camera. It's all here. And I'm thinking it's going to be a similar thing, right? Like I'm really confident it's going to find, you know, at least a good size audience of people who love the frickin' hell out of it. And once that happens, that word spreads, right? So even if it doesn't like start day one as like, oh, there's no people lining up for it, and maybe there will be, I don't know. I mean, we'll see what happens. I think it's gonna translate into this kind of groundswell because I really think it's gonna find an audience. And I mean, I look at me, right? I have been the worst BlackBerry champion the past few years. And all of a sudden, this is like the BlackBerry that's got me, you know, using only one phone and feeling amazing about it because I don't need to have two phones on me to feel like I have a complete thing, which I know for a lot of people, like that's been the reality of being a BlackBerry user. And I've even seen it at some of our meetups, right? It's like, oh, I love my BlackBerry 10th phone and I got another phone in my back pocket. I mean, that happens a lot with BlackBerry users around the world, I think the last few years still. And this is like the one phone to rule them all. I just need it. I have not once felt like I need to look at another device since I've had it. And I feel like if I did look at another device again, I would be missing my freaking KEYone. And I'm like, if that doesn't say enough, I'm like, I don't know. I mean,
you wouldn't look at it with the same love because it's just a lab.
No, like and I think, you know, Blaze has known me forever. James is going to get to know me pretty well. And it's like, look, Kevin's the kind of guy where I only have, you know, I'm very much one way, right? It's like all or nothing. And when it comes to products in general, if there's something I like, I will sell you on it so hard because I think you're missing out on life until you own it, right? And there's things like Sonos speakers for your house. I'm like, dude, everybody in the chat room, if you don't own Sonos, I mean, save your pennies, save your dollars, and freaking put in Sonos because you're not living like the music lifestyle you deserve in your day-to-day life until you have your house fully equipped with Sonos. Like you just have to do it. You know, other products, I mean, Tesla's still early days, but you know, if you can justify it, it's hard not to talk your ear off about it. The Spigen frickin' style ring, I will save my video, but you know, I'm like, look, it's not, if you want to be productive, I hate the word productivity. If you just want the best mobile experience, sticking one of those frickin' rings on the back of your phone makes your experience better. Take the 2-day test and then tell me after 2 days if you don't agree with me. You can take it off, but take the 2-day test because I guarantee you'll be like, oh, he's right. Yeah, this is better.
Yeah.
And,
damn it, Kevin's right.
Yeah, exactly. And with the KEYone, I'm like, I freaking love it. And I do think there's going to be an adjustment period, which is probably like my biggest thing. And I'm already thinking about it, you know, the CrackBerry articles we need to start writing because I think, you know, for anybody who's used the physical keyboard before, obviously, you know how to pick it up and start using it. But then I was thinking like, well, if you've never used a physical keyboard before, ever, right? You've only been on touchscreens and you pick this thing up. I could see it being tricky because it's like, well, I just know to hold down the Alt key while I'm like tapping the numbers I want to have appear and those types of things, right? But if you've never done it, it's not necessarily that you're just going to know how to do it because you've never experienced it before. So I think there's definitely going to be some like, you know, onboarding time required or like syncing in period that people will have to commit to. But I think similar to the Spigen style ring, if you give it 48 hours and you know, you just work through a couple of those minor getting used to, you know, just changes, right? Changes of habit. It should be a pretty addictive phone for a lot of people. So, I'm talking too much again. Damn it. I promised everybody I would. But I did say it would come at the end of the show. So that's not bad.
Yeah.
James, Blaze, any thoughts on meetups or like, oh, we should talk about where we're going next with our meetups.
Yeah.
So we just did Toronto. We just did Winnipeg. We've announced 2 more CrackBerry meetups. The first one is going to be in Miami, Florida, next Friday, or this Friday, March 17th, St. Patrick's Day. We don't have a venue yet, but we will shortly. So potentially by the time you listen to this or not, you'll find out.
Right. So make sure that you RSVP so that we know how many to actually search out a venue for.
Exactly. I feel like this is going to be our hottest meetup. See what I did there? That's funny.
Oh God.
I can't wait for these sleeveless Kevin shirts. You know, I always like to do the
sun's out, guns out.
If we're doing photos, it's always like this. So I'm gonna be like, yeah, pop my shoulders out for these. But and then we're doing New York on the 22nd, which, you know, New York, we always have a blast, and that's, you know, that's been where we've typically done meetups in the past. So hopefully we'll have a great turnout there. And, you know, the whole goal of these is it's for everybody listening and watching right now. It's for the fans, right? And love that we're doing it, and, you know, gonna try to do more of them. So I think stay tuned. You know, obviously it's much easier efficiency wise to do North America, so that's the plan. But I'm hoping we can take it, you know, over the pond as well as you know, time goes on here. But we'll be announcing more soon. So keep it locked to CrackBerry. If you are listening to this and don't know where to sign up, you know, if you hit crackberry.com, we'll have a link always prominent for meetup locations. But if you go to meetup.com and you probably just search, you know, if you're in Miami or whatever, or New York, if you just search CrackBerry, you should be able to find it there too quite easily. So super awesome. Anything else for today's show, guys?
No, I think we smashed and crushed that one.
Boom. Yeah, we're a little rough at this. Poor Craig. I don't know what happened to his. It's probably the, you know, not even his local connection. It's probably something just with crossed wires on the interwebs.
No, he sent an email and said, "Sorry guys, something weird with Hangouts for me." He did a bunch of tests and stuff like that. Everything was fine, so it was just Hangouts being weird.
Cool. No, we'll get it all straightened out though. And James, good job on your first podcast. And I think that the great news here is you're going to be the guy who makes sure these happen like every week, right? So if I'm not around, you guys just go full speed ahead. You don't need me. And then there'll be no Kevin. And then when I come, and then when I come on, I'll rant and rave like I normally tend to. So it won't be as annoying for everyone. Well, are we going to aim for Sundays? Is that a good time for everybody? Is that like...
that's what we used to do the Berry Flow ones on, and that always seemed perfectly fine. So,
yeah. Well, why don't we stick to that? And then, you know, hopefully I can make lots. And if I don't, you guys just go and let's bring in some guests. And, you know, at the end of our last episode, I did this crazy thing, which is I shared the Hangout link with our live chat. We're not going to do that today because we have a better idea, which is we're going to do a community episode soon. But what I want to do is like line up everybody who wants to participate, and then we will like email you the link or something right before, you know, you're due to come on. So as long as you like have Hangouts and stuff ready to go, and then we'll kind of bring in one person at a time for like 5 minutes or 10 minutes, and, you know, do a quick little interview, find out, you know, what's your username, favorite BlackBerries, you looking forward to the KEYone, what are you looking forward to, etc. And then we can go from there. But I think that'd be awesome to do. So we got to make that happen. But we won't just drop the link because it was too crazy to deal with.
Yeah, it's a little crazy. I think we did that on Berry Flow before as well, and people just went a little nuts.
All good. Okay, well, let's. I don't have Craig to take us out, so I mean, James, where can everybody follow you on the Twitters and anywhere else?
Everywhere, Instagram, Twitter, at JMZNVS, and moreover, find me on CrackBerry on the blogs, in the forums. We'll be around.
Are you on the Snapchats?
I am. I don't use it as much as like Michael Fisher and Phil are using it these days, but I'm gonna try to pick that up right along with these Instagram stories. There's so many channels these days to go to.
We really need Snapchat really needs to redo that Android app though, because it is poo on every Android phone in existence. Yeah, it just is not.
I was saying.
It is not a good Android app at the moment, but that's cool. I'm on Snapchat. I've been using it lately, or stories. I've been more like, I've been crushing it on the Instagrams and the Twitters at CrackBerry Kevin. BBM channels also still got that one going. Which it's funny how much I like BBM channels, but then I feel like it could be so much better still if they just did a couple more things to it.
Oh yeah, BBM channels is like one of those heartbreaking BlackBerry things
Yeah.
where it's like it had so much potential, but
Yeah.
it's not.
Yeah,
nothing there.
I don't know if there's a way to re-kickstart that, but I don't think. I mean, you never know. I mean, yeah, I don't know, but I am still there posting a little bit, so that's cool. Blaze, where can people find you?
You can find me on crackberry.com. Of course, you can also find me on Twitter at BLA1ZE or ZE, depending on where you're from. I'm also on BBM channels. I think that is Blaze as well. And you can find me on Instagram at Blaze as well, too.
Love it.
I really locked down my branding. I don't know what everybody else got going on. I locked mine down.
And you can find us all on crackberry.com, posting articles and videos and yelling at each other in the forums and in the comments and everything else like that. So thanks for watching today, everyone, and listening in. And I guess the show's going to happen next Sunday, no matter what. I don't know where I'm going to be. I mean, it is Miami with Music Ultra Fest. So I will probably not be on that episode.
It'll be Kevin live from a rave with his BlackBerry KEYone.
Yeah,
I need to go
above the crowd.
Actually, I need to take it around and just get some like good photos, while I'm there, because Winnipeg is pretty. I mean, the worst of winter's over, but it's still kind of depressing looking outside. But I mean, that's the time to like stock up on my future Instagram photos, right?
Yeah,
So.
well, you're in Miami. Miami's a beautiful spot to take some photos.
So if I am not on episode 4, I will see you on episode 5 of our 10th year anniversary series. But we've got the capable hands of James and Blaze, and somebody else will join in, I'm sure, to keep everybody entertained.
Absolutely.
That's it. Take care, guys.
Later.
Peace.
Kevin out.